is fuck the Indians, fuck the Malays. I only want to see economic gain for Singapore. I don't give a fuck.
You immediately said yes, so I really appreciate that. So let's get to it. Let's discuss the term Chinese privilege, and maybe my first question to you is let me do the preamble first, maybe, right? So when I heard what you said, and I was a bit, I guess I was a bit concerned at some point, because you were saying that how we should be stomping on the idea, and I'm not sure whether ideas should be stomped on. And for me, when we operate in the marketplace of ideas, we should be debating and refuting and discussing and not stomp on. But maybe hyperbole aside, what is your stance on Chinese privilege? So mine is quite clear that, first of all, I think it is the unearned advantages or power that a Chinese person derives from being the majority race, partly, and also because of partly because of other factors as well in Singapore, in spite of other identities that person may have. Right, so that's my definition, and I think it's quite uncontroversial to suggest that there is Chinese privilege in Singapore. So I just wanted you to respond, and then we can take the discussion from there. By the way, this is the most well-attended episode since episode 2.
Wow.
So I wonder why.
Well,
Yes.
you have really touched a nerve. First of all, I want to say that I have not lived in Singapore since 1974,
Right off the bat, from the accent, we can tell already, sir.
and yet I call myself a Singaporean. So I'm not so familiar with the political use of the term Chinese privilege in Singapore. And I read your article, and so all of these are nuances that I haven't lived with. I want to have this discussion. I think it's very important to talk about terms such as Chinese privilege. And I also am glad for the chance to explain what I said in a way that makes it clearer.
Sure.
For example, just now you just said, Maylan says you should stomp on the term Chinese privilege. I would say that my words was that if Lee Kuan Yew was here, he would have stomped on it.
And you said justifiably so, right? You added justifiably so. So I assume that part is your. I assume that is your opinion.
Yes, it is. And
Yeah.
I would like the chance to...
Then, what the fuck?
Cannot. That's right. Yeah. That's what we have.
Oh, she's thinking
I
hard,
asked
bro.
the topic of this to be called digital tsunami and the term Chinese privilege, because I think that's really why we have to be very careful about the use of the term.
Wait. She said she's gonna explain what she meant by that Lee Kuan Yew stomping on ideas and then justifiably so, and then suddenly pivot.
The digital tsunami means that underlying potential areas of contention within any society can actually be exploited by others outside for their own purposes that may not have to do with the factors of what's going on inside the country. We have seen that, and I'm living it here in the United States. Since you invited me, we had the January 6th storming of the Capitol. This is where it was really, really shocking for people in the United States who weren't close to those issues, and the use of social media and internet platforms really is bringing new factors into how people relate to each other, and also how divisions can be exploited. So I really am worried about the use of the term Chinese privilege. For example, in your paper, you very, very carefully define there's all kinds of reasons why you can't translate white privilege to Chinese privilege.
Right.
The trouble is that's in an academic paper where you said it. But if you just say it out in the open, in the Straits Times, where you aren't peeling apart the nuances that you can't just say Chinese privilege equates to white privilege, then
Sure.
it becomes a little tricky.
Right.
And I think it's really bringing forward the fact that in Singapore, the whole
Okay, wait. So first of all, right, she comes up to say that we are, or she is justified, Lee Kuan Yew is justified in, if he was here, he would stomp out this Chinese privilege because it is being used in the wrong context as to America, one, and then two is that it is being exploited to cause divisions and stuff. And then she goes on to cite an example from America which has nothing to do with Chinese privilege. It's literally what she was talking about. What the fuck?
discussion about race has been, in fact, tamped down. And I'd like to say, I grew up, I was there in 1965. I was 9 years old at independence. The riots and what happened in Indonesia, all of those things were part of my own growing up. And to some degree, I think about it as not crying fire in a crowded theater, But in those days, in those times, it was very, very tricky to stir up racial tensions because they were already there, and there were power plays going on, powerful people using the mood of the crowd to advance their pieces, whatever their agenda was. And those were the days where it was very tricky. It may seem very safe still in Singapore, but in the U.S. it does not feel safe. The whole the division that's happening in the United States, all of that was under the surface and it's now coming.
Very, very slippery slope argument, right? First of all, alluding that just because we bring up certain disparities between the races and talking about Chinese privilege, that racial tensions will be like it is in America. What? That doesn't make any sense. And then secondly, how is Chinese privilege being exploited right now to do anything? Are the Malays getting into SAF more? Are they becoming pilots more? Are we hiring people off the fact that they can speak Mandarin or English? Has that changed? No, nothing has. What has been exploited? Mail-in Fung. I really want to know. I really have this. I wish I did this interview, man.
Right. People are really seeing white supremacy, Black Lives Matter. There's many things that are going on.
Sure. So I mean, there's a lot there to unpack, right? So I understand the concern that the worry is the discussion is not nuanced, right? I completely get that, because not everything is Chinese privilege, in my opinion, right? But what is the solution to do away with the term? What is the solution to just dismiss the term immediately? What is the solution not? Let's have a nuanced discussion. And this is...
I actually agree. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Sure.
What? This bitch, she can't be all like, we should stomp out. Lee Kuan Yew should stomp out. Or Lee Kuan Yew would stomp out if he was alive, blah, 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 blah. And justifiably so. Then she is basically giving you a prescriptive term right there, which means that she agrees with that. It should be stomped out. And then now she says, yeah, let's have a debate. So that's really, really different. Just flipping a script one by one. So fucking Weasley, dude. What a weasel.
It's the term that has so much packaged inside it.
Okay,
so why are you?
Sure. So maybe I'll give a few.
This is the face of true privilege, where if you are more bothered by the term minorities used to describe the undermining struggles, right, or the undermined struggles that the majority just easily sweep aside, and deny. That is true privilege right there. Really, really, rather than focusing on what their daily struggles are like, you're focusing on the term because the term offends you in some sort of projection kind of way. It's disgusting, my guy.
Examples, and then you tell me if it's not Chinese privilege, what is the term you prefer to describe the phenomenon? So when DPM Hing and even PM Lee has said before that SM Taman cannot be prime minister, or because the population or the older Chinese especially is not ready for a non-Chinese prime minister, what do you call that? What term would you introduce to describe that phenomenon?
Politics.
Alright, but politics, why is that
My god. We're just weaseling out. She doesn't have an answer, she knows it, and then she's laughing. To be honest, that's what is happening right here, and I think the professor knows himself. He sees through the BS, to be honest. So you mean to tell me that yeah, correct, true. Actually, by definition, right, most of the things that are kind of in the way of equality, racial equality, are affected by the politics of the PAP of Singapore, and that's exactly alluding to one of the factor being Chinese privilege. I wouldn't say it's everything's Chinese privilege, but it's just there, like politics. Yeah, politics. What, favoring who? The Chinese, right? Then we come back to the same circle again. You just wanna bring up a semantic argument and say we should call it something else just to sugarcoat your feelings? Bitch, please.
Why is that a better term to encapsulate what is going on, right? Because when you say politics, there are so many things that come under the banner of politics, right? But there is a specific racial element there, right? And I'm not even saying that's racism, you're right, because I think PM Lee and EPM Hing are onto something, that maybe there are some people who are uncomfortable with a non-Chinese prime minister, right? Now, whether those sentiments should be accepted is a different matter, but I think they are not right. They are not wrong on the facts, right? But how do you describe that phenomenon? The fact that SM Taman, even though he is, many people say, and I believe as well, he's clearly more than qualified, but he cannot be because of his race. Could you give us a better term then to describe the phenomenon?
I can't, because this whole situation of the politics inside Singapore, I tried to say before we set up this time that I'm not equipped to kind of come up with terms for Singapore, what's going on in Singapore, because I don't live there, and you know.
Then maybe, just maybe, right, you should have shut your mouth when it came to topics like this in Singapore when you haven't lived there for what, fucking 30 over years, maybe? I don't know. Fuck.
So, yeah, I think that the term Chinese privilege brings up that you're advantaged in some way because of some inherent thing.
Yeah.
So, I could say you are male privileged, guys, because
Wait, but that's not even an argument though. Look at how condescending she looks too though. Like, hey, look, I made a good point, but no, it's a dumb point actually.
I would absolutely agree with you.
yeah, and so
And I wouldn't dismiss the concerns of people or females who raise that term.
yeah.
I would say let's have a nuanced discussion, but I wouldn't say, oh, there is no such thing.
Well, I'm not saying there's no such thing. I live with,
I have a black friend.
fact that some people are advantaged because of their sex or their who their parents were.
Right, exactly.
By the way, if you do some quick research on who she is, right, it's not surprising lah. Honestly, her family background, her race, her gender, everything is really privileged. Okay, so it's just very inconvenient to just accept that she has some privilege, even though she's born a female, which she can then say, I have lesser privilege because I'm not male, which is kind of debatable but somewhat true, right? So this is why she harps on other things and doesn't want to acknowledge the topic. I'm predicting right now, from what she's been always pivoting to, she's either gonna pivot to, oh, I'm in America, or I'm a girl, I face discrimination, I didn't say that it doesn't exist, kind of thing. But actually initially, when it was 3 Chinese people and 1 white guy talking about race, they were so dismissive. It was a gangbang, right? And everyone was shitting on the concept. But then now suddenly, when she's caught, no, she doesn't have anything.
There's lots of different advantages. I think the term privilege brings a certain sense of aggression that it's unjust, unfair, and it needs to be fixed right away.
Right. So
What I'm saying is that not every ill can be fixed right away.
What has that got to do with the problem? Huh? That's like me saying, right, okay, you know what? Let's stop helping the homeless because, right, or the poor, because not every single poor or homeless person, right, can move themselves out of poverty. That doesn't do anything. That's the so fucking stupid.
And sometimes if you stir up people's, get upset about this sense, and you get a lot of people stirred up about it, then there's the possibility that it just moves into just rage, and I think at this time of the digital tsunami, and I would like a chance to say a little bit about the dangers of this digital tsunami. At the time of the digital tsunami, whatever rage there is or passion has a potential of being used for power plays, for advantage. For Singapore itself is a small country in a region of many different races, and I think it's not to the benefit of anyone to bring up the racial issues, that we are far better to say, how can we come together to...
So basically her solution is, right, if you want to improve on racism, just don't talk about racism. Hey, right? Cyberbullying doesn't exist. Just go offline, bro. Just off your computer, bro. It doesn't exist, bro.
Collaborate to make the ASEAN region be the wonderful, thriving region it could be. I don't know if you know, but in 2002, I was one of the overseas Singaporeans who raised the issue that Singapore should pay attention to ASEAN, that ASEAN was going to be a rising economic region, and Singapore's future was completely tied to ASEAN. And we were lucky enough as overseas Singaporeans to be listened to by the cabinet, and so they went ahead. Now ASEAN is very important to MFA.
Okay, I don't give a fuck about ASEAN. What has that got to do with racial relations in Singapore? What has that got to do with Malay and Indians living here? So you telling me that we should put our transnational global issues above the people that we are supposed to govern and take care of? Fuck off. What? Just cause of what? Some economic gains, huh? Fucking hell.
And talks about ASEAN, but back in 2002, that wasn't the case.
Right. So I think let's explore that a little, right? Yeah. So in 2002, that wasn't a priority, but the more people discussed it, the more it entered the public discourse,
yes,
and people accepted it. Why can't we apply the same for Chinese privilege?
So
the concept.
I don't mind using the term advantage of different aspects. But
so you would prefer Chinese advantage over Chinese privilege, or
male advantage? The trouble about the word privilege is it has so much echo of the term white privilege, and the term white privilege came about in the United States because
You see, this is what I mean. This is she falling back to the three things just now I mentioned. Her three tactics only. Her first tactic is to go back to the context of America. And then when you pressure her later on, and then she's gonna hop on to say, I have not lived in Singapore in 30 years, so I don't think I'm the right person to have this discussion, or my comments not warranted. Fuck off, man.
the history of slavery, segregation,
I understand that, but I'm not sure whether many people are saying we should adopt the terms uncritically. We can use that for our. First of all, I just want to say I'm not sure how using the term Chinese privilege is aggressive or inciting, because by the way, whether we use the terms or not, people are talking about it. It's a reality for many people. And by the way, I don't purport to speak for minorities. I cannot speak for minorities. I can only speak for myself, and I have done from the perspective of a researcher who has talked to many people about this, and also from looking at what has been said and done in this country, right? So whether we use the term, I think we cannot pretend that people are not discussing it and people are not using the term, or this is a lived reality for many people, right? So that's the first thing. And second thing, right? Just because it is used in America in a particular way doesn't mean we cannot use the term in Singapore and adapt it to our context, right? I believe you are.
Actually, you said right. I don't agree with that.
Okay, so maybe I can give you an example.
No, can I come back?
Yeah, sure. I give you an example and then you can respond to that. So I believe you are a fan of secularism, right, in Singapore?
I actually not sure if I really understand the way you mean it, the term.
No. I'm just saying the term.
Political scientist.
No. But that's my point. You see, our lexicon, our political lexicon, our political realities, we adopt terms from the West all the time. Democracy, multiculturalism, secularism, and all of these are non-issues. Somehow, when it comes to Chinese privilege, we cannot adopt it because this is a Western concept.
No.
Okay, sure. Carry on. Yes.
And I want to go back to the founding of Singapore. At the time of the founding of Singapore, there was really around the world, everywhere, this idea that Western foreign investment meant going back to colonialism. So India, for example, didn't allow foreign investment unless I think a certain amount was given to the state. And so what I think happened in Singapore is plotting our own path, right? Which is not just saying, India says, foreign investment is bad, therefore we bring it over. Singapore thinks foreign investment. In fact, it was Singapore's willingness.
Bro, I'm so lost at what argument she's making. I am as clueless as this guy. His face is my face. I'm gonna go eat first, guys. Be right back. Fuck this shit. Okay, I'm back, guys. Sure. Go through this shit. Only halfway through, Fuck. But alright, let's do this.
To plot its own path forward that allowed Singapore to be successful, to say we can bring in foreign investment and we can make it work for us. And so I think that of course we should bring in what works and not bring in what doesn't work. And I think what I'm saying is that I'm not sure.
But that's the thing. It's okay, for one, right, it's not even a problem of the West. It's a global problem. I think everywhere you go, there's bound to be majority privilege in every country and racial privilege in every country as well. The whole concept of Chinese privilege, right, is not to, I would say, destroy a system and make things that are fine go awry and cause racial riots and destroy a city, blah 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 blah. No, it's honestly just a way to communicate with people and for them to acknowledge what others are going through. That's basically it. Whether of course it's gonna cause some tension and divide. If you think about when slavery was abolished, that caused a lot of tension and divide too, didn't it? The whites wanted to profit off the blacks, and now you're telling me I can't own a black man to pick my cotton for me for my own profit? That was hell. That was blood. That was a civil war, right? No one's calling for that. But if we still keep silent on such issues, then maybe one day that could actually cause something to spark off. Suppressing will lead to oppressing. Just that simple.
In fact, I'm really sure the term Chinese privilege doesn't work for Singapore, because what we want to do is plot our own path through this whole very tricky area of race. And when you use a term that's developed in a completely different context, but you don't know and can't control how the people listening to you are going to take it, and you also can't control how other people with other agendas might take your word.
That's why education is important. That's why we need to talk more about these issues, right? And not less. When gays were thought of as a mental disorder or disease in DSM-5 in the 70s or 60s, that was such a taboo thing. And then when it finally got studied by researchers, scientists, psychiatrists, psychologists, they realized no, being gay, being bi, being a lesbian isn't a mental disorder. It's a lifestyle that is not decided by choice.
And make it.
Sure, I mean, I understand that. I understand that there will be people with different agendas trying to exploit. That's even if you use the term which you suggested, Chinese advantage. I don't see how that negates those 2 points, right? Whether it's less aggressive or whether it's going to be taken advantage of. So it seems to me that you are not disagreeing with the concept but the terminology, or am I misunderstanding?
I'm disagreeing about the dialogue focusing on one aspect. It's almost like there's a whole body and we are talking about the left hand only, and then we are not talking about
what is that whole body, and what are the right hands, what are the feet, what are the head?
Okay. So I am not really into Singapore politics because I haven't.
Hey, bro! My 3 theories all on the spot, bro. Her only 3 tactics, right? I fucking theorized that shit, man. I got it down. I knew she was gonna weasel out to this. Fuck, man. Oh, I'm so good.
Okay. But what I am into is what's going to happen in the world in the next 10 to 20 years. And that this idea of what digital technology can do is starting to happen everywhere. And Singapore is a leading country, a leading digital economy. And there is tremendous potential.
See, again. So, at the end of the day, right, basically what she's saying, right, is fuck the Indians, fuck the Malays. I only want to see economic gain for Singapore. I don't give a fuck about racial relations. You can't make this shit up, really. You can't.
Singapore to make a big difference in the world. And what I would like to see is the people of Singapore, regardless of race, language, or religion, coming together to move the advantage forward, rather than trying to say, oh, the pie is this limited, let's work out how previous advantage and future.
Why can't it be both, though? If the previous advantages already set a precedent of unfairness in the competition, right? Or there's no true meritocracy, right? If I have been running with a backpack for 5 kilometers and I'm tired, I've been weighed down and bogged down and disadvantaged because of this backpack, right? Suddenly I take this backpack off, and then now you tell me, okay, let's go for a 100-meter sprint right now. I'll be fatigued, won't I? Don't you think I should be given a little bit of a head start to compensate for my previous disadvantages? Or no, do you think it's fair? What? 100 meters. You lose because you're just slow. It's not because of your history or what you've done before. This woman is really, really not getting it. But I'm not surprised.
Her advantage can split the current pie. I'd rather us all work on expanding the pie, and the growth opportunity for Singapore, for me, is really great. We have literally the best health system.
Look. She is pivoting all over the place, just talking about everything under the sun except race.
Education system.
Those are not. So I understand all of that, and I understand what you said during the forum as well. So two things, right? One is I always compare Singapore to what Singapore can be, not just how Singapore is better than the others. I compare Singapore to its absolute best. And just because we are doing very well doesn't mean we should not be talking about the areas where we are not doing so well in, right? So I think it seems like a motherhood statement when people say, oh, we must all move together. Of course, but we must also acknowledge that there are certain advantages, if we don't want to use the word privilege, certain advantages, and if we are against the term Chinese privilege because it's an American term in origin, then shouldn't the right thing to do would be to suggest an alternative term, an indigenous term that would make people happier, and then we can move on and talk about the issues because the concept, when I was explaining this to my parents, my parents are not educated, I was talking to them about Chinese privilege, right? They were looking at me as if I was some idiot. Why you need a new term for this? Everybody knows, every minority, and this is what this, every minority knows this in Singapore. So it's a strange thing when people are going after the term rather than the concept, because for me that's a little bit of a red herring. I'm willing to accept whatever term you suggest as long as we agree on the contents of the term.
So I guess
the mic falling was quite funny though.
Because for me that's a little bit of a red herring. I'm willing to accept whatever term.
Just representative of the intellect in this debate to be honest.
using terms which may get the different races pitted against each other. And I think just like you are a man and I am a woman, that,
Why does she keep saying that? Why? What's wrong with her? Oh my god, she can admit that there are privileges, but not to own up to her own. Wow, this... How like that? How to get through someone like that?
You are a very enlightened man, and so when I say you have a male advantage, you say yes, I do. But in
Yes.
fact, there are many men who say, "What are you talking about? Women are taking my jobs," and
Right.
and so on.
And the solution would be to convince and debate with those men, right?
Actually, I want to say that some people will not be convinced right away, but I do
For
agree
sure.
that the solution is more discussion. Okay, and I think in Singapore's sort of debate has got so not compassionate and not thinking about caring for each other, and so.
Actually, I'm really so confused. This is literally the first debate I've watched on Chinese privilege. No one dares to speak out about this. When have you seen a debate on Chinese privilege? Where is this from? The only instances where race is talked about where it's only on like online, right? And it's by bots or comments or angry minorities complaining about something racist that happened to them. That's all we ever talk about race. There's no one. Okay, and the brown face incident. That's just all we talk about race. There's no other platform or no other opportunities to do so. And if I'm wrong, just link me to a Chinese privilege debate in Singapore context, because I've not seen it. I have not seen CNA, Channel 5, Channel 8 be talking about race. No one is talking about race. I'm not sure what debates. Maybe the debate is going on ahead. I don't know.
I want more dialogue, but I would like the dialogue to be more
good dialogue.
And
Good dialogue.
passionate about how do we move forward in a
Sorry,
way.
Millie. Do you think the when you said
So she wants a very compassionate discussion. Okay. But first of all, there hasn't been any. And when people raise it up with compassion and not being so outspoken with ideas, people get shut down. So, Maylin, I don't know, Maylin. Sounds like she hasn't really thought much about this issue. And I'm just gonna waste another 20 minutes watching this, aren't I?
Lee Kuan Yew would storm on the idea and justifiably so. Do you think that was a compassionate way of addressing people's concerns, right? So, is it again? I mean, by the way, I'm completely fine with that characterization, right? Because if you disagree with the idea, okay, carry on. We can be as forceful as you like, as long as we are civil. And I think you have been very civil, and I appreciate that. So, I'm saying nobody is saying that. Because if there are people who are saying this, then I am completely against. This is not my understanding of Chinese privilege. The Chinese have been advantaged in every aspect of life. Every single Chinese has been advantaged in every aspect of their lives, which is completely not the argument I'm making. And therefore, we must take this away from them. That's the second. The solution, right, is the second step. Right now, we cannot even agree on the first part before we get to the solution, right? So I think partly one of the ways to engender more compassion is for us to actually have a listening ear when people are actually saying this. And what are your concerns? Why do you use this term, right? Would you agree with that?
Yes, I would agree. I would agree with that.
Right. Okay. So another thing is I wanted to ask you, since you said you have not lived here since 1974, right?
Yeah.
But your response to the question, right, was quite forceful. You were not hedging, or you were not.
No.
And it seemed to, because this live chat, right, is not going to be covered by Mothership or Straits Times, right? It's not going to get the attention that the IPS forum did, right? So most probably people are going to remember your comments about race, not from this chat, right? The general public is going to remember it from that forum, right? So if you're unsure about something, right, why did you take such a forceful stance against it before actually investigating or listening to minorities?
I took the forceful stance because I live here in the United States, and I know the way the term white privilege is used, and it made me very, very worried that it would be, the term Chinese privilege would be used in a way that uses this sort of same I'm living here. There's so much anger. there's so much upset and
Can you blame the blacks though? Can you really look at the statistics and not feel the same?
centuries of suffering really that have happened here, and so I'm living it in a kind of a real way about the white privilege term. And growing up in Singapore, I just didn't have that. I couldn't see how it could apply not the way I'm living it here. So I spoke as somebody who's been living in the United States for over 30 years.
Okay, so basically she misrepresented herself in the forum. She is not saying that Chinese privilege doesn't exist or that it should be stomped on regarding her comments right now. She just doesn't want the term to be associated with white privilege, right? So, end of discussion. So she basically agrees that Chinese privilege is a thing and should be talked about. I don't know why this professor is so nice to give her another 20 minutes to speak. Just like, okay, thank you for agreeing with me. Bye bye.